on, YouTube. You got one job. Well, you got a lot of jobs. You got one job, and that's the start. There we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. CaptainShack here. Welcome to a new stream. I've never done Tabletop Simulator, so today's goal, let me know if the audio is good, guys. Today's goal is going to be to express the things that I've learned as a up-and-coming GM for Edge of the Empire, which is a tabletop RPG for Tabletop Simulator. So if you're looking to play this with friends online, we're gonna talk about what I've learned so far. I'm actually starting my first campaign this Monday. Quick shout out real quick to Control for kind of sparking my imagination with this. I've never played like a D&D style tabletop game before, having played with him at his just like constantly saying, hey Shaq, come play with us. Now that I've played, I'm super into it. I absolutely love it. The creativity, the cooperative storytelling experience is just really cool. Really cool. And in the Star Wars setting, it's a setting that I love so much already that I want to GM it now. I really want to. So I got a small group of players. For you guys who are asking in the chat, and I know it's coming, Shaq, are you gonna stream it? Not the first few. I want to make sure that the players are having fun. I want to make sure that we're all very comfortable with it. I want to make sure that I'm a decent GM, in which case, crazy cat, we might stream it. We will record just like the audio and probably the Tabletop Simulator video for the first episodes. But okay, anyways, for you guys who are joining us on the VOD after the stream is over, let's get into using Tabletop Simulator to play Edge of the Empire, Force and Destiny, and the Rebellion book that I, for some reason, I don't even have it with me either, it's downstairs. The Rebellion book that's out there too. These three books, for those who've never played before, are basically the same game. They just have a little bit different focuses, and their mechanics are like 90% the same, right? I'll show you guys one of the books. So, come here. Here is Force and Destiny, right? This is like 400 or 500 pages. This Edge of the Empire, which is the other one, which is sitting next to me. Another core rule book. There's this guy right here. They're the same rules. Combat works the same way. It's just this has stuff specific to people who live out on the edge, on the rim. It even has some stories you can play through. You're talking bounty hunters and smugglers. You're talking about slicers and assassins. Whereas Force and Destiny has more information and more rule stuff for your Force users, your Force sensitives, and people who want to explore that kind of story. We're kind of mixing these books together, which is totally allowed and legit. And a little bit of Rebellion for this upcoming story. So how could you take those and play with your friends online? Well, there's a couple of different tools that you can use. Tabletop Simulator is one, and Roll20 is another if you're looking for something else. Roll20 is what I've experienced so far, but for my game, for what I want to GM, I want to try Tabletop Simulator. So to do so, first, own the core books. This does give assets through player-made workshop mods that you can use to kind of enhance the experience, but you have to own the core books. Because you got to give some money to the people who made the game. It's just, if that's fair and legit. That's my thinking on the subject. So all right, let's go ahead and load up. I'm gonna go into single player, and we are going to load up. We're gonna go to the workshop, and we're gonna load up Edge of the Empire table. Now this, let me make sure this is the right table. So we'll load it. Give everything a chance to load. This game has workshop support. There are tons of different player-made games. We'll go ahead and cancel that. There are, you can play poker on this. You can play all kinds of stuff. It's got a full physics engine, so you can like roll dice across the table like you see me doing there. There's a lot of stuff that this does that's really cool, and that I think is going to enhance our sessions of playing this game. Playing and telling stories in this. You can roll dice. You can throw them around. Cha. So. But you can do a lot more than that. So this is the right table. So what we're gonna look at, let me go back to games. We're gonna go to the workshop, and we're gonna go to the page for this. So there are quite a few Edge of the Empire player-made kind of modifications you can subscribe to on the workshop. The one that I'm gonna be using, the one that I find the most useful, if we go ahead and expand this, we don't wanna expand it, we wanna go to info. If we look at this, this is the logo you wanna look for. Let me go to info. I can put a link in the description too. This will be the logo you're looking for, and then there's the description of it. There's some functionality with this particular table that works really, really well. and I'll talk about that right now. So when you have your players making their characters, you're gonna jump in and they're gonna be able to change color. They're gonna be able to choose a color by going up to this right hand, their name, go to change color, and this is their seat at the table. This is where they're going to be playing from. Once they've chosen one of these colors, which the black one in the middle is going to be the game master, so he'll be able to see everything. Say I want to be the red player, I want to sit on this side of the table. My name goes across there. I can now modify and see everything on my character sheet, and this is why I love this version of the tables, because you could actually change all of the stuff on here. Now, none of the other tables that I could find allowed me to modify a character sheet on the table. Normally, you'd have to have the character sheet, you know, like in your hand, an actual printed version of it. I've asked my players to go ahead and do that anyway, so they have a backup. So yeah, you can modify this, and not only can you modify it, the character sheet, while you're making your character. If we go to edit here, it's all scripted, but it actually fills in the information for you. So if your character is a brawn burly type, a big dude, he's got a lot of strength, and you start increasing your strength, it automatically fills in your skills that would get a bonus from that, and that's what these little resilience, or these little dots are. These are your green skill dice. Something here. So, those are your ability dice, excuse me. The yellow ones are your skill dice, green is your ability dice. I'm not gonna go too deep into the mechanics of the actual game, just the functionality of using this table as a player and as a GM. So, there's a lot of guides out there on how to play the FFG, Fantasy Flight Games, RPG, tabletop RPG. But I love this idea that I can just pop in my stats for my character. I think my character, he's human, so he starts off with 2s across the board. And then I upgraded his presence. He's, when he walks into a room, people notice. He's a smuggler kind of character for the one that I've been playing with Control. And he's got a little bit of agility, so I thought kind of a gunslinger type. He can pull out his weapon real fast if he needs to. And that gave him the... what did I say? The abilities, these green abilities. Now, you can also, in this game, pick certain skills. These are skills that, where the green is they're naturally good at something because of their stats. The skills are things that they've trained and they've worked hard at. And one of the things that my smuggler had worked hard at was being a pilot. So, planetary space pilot, we can rank that up and it automatically fills in what dice you need. These represent dice, by the way. I just love the fact that it fills them in. So, there you go, 2 points into piloting. Those dice have a better chance, the yellow ones, of having something really good happen. So. Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Yeah, it's basically kind of Star Wars D&D. It does have its own custom dice, which are kind of cool. Let me see if I've got... Yeah, I've got some on me, so these would be the custom dice. The yellows that I was just talking about, the greens, and they show up on the character sheet, so. All right. That's one of the reasons why I like it. The other reason is once you've made your character, by the way, this took me a hot minute to figure out. To edit the name, you have to go here and then type the name of the character in the little notes section at the bottom. So my smuggler is called John Roland, and I can edit his species. He's human. He's a Carillion human, which is, there's actually a difference, but we'll just put human on there for now. And then his career is smuggler. And it won't come up automatically. You have to hit save. And once you've saved, I did that wrong, didn't I? Oh, probably gotta put it in here. Let's see. Pop that in there. Oh, I didn't edit it. John Roland, it didn't save it. Why didn't you edit? Enter edit mode and change name. And then save. Maybe it'll update it. That's not updating it now. It was updating it before. Very strange. I'll have to read through it. Because like here, down here is actually your guide on how to do everything. So you can scroll down with these cards. You can read what you need to do. There's an edit mode, so you must enter edit mode. Save damage sheet, back up your stats. Oh, I might have broken this when I was messing around with it earlier. But when you do save your character, I'm gonna have to reload the map to figure out why that's not working. But it saves it to this little data cube, which is actually like a little text file, which is kind of neat because then you can save this object by right-clicking it and go to save object and paste it in later, and boom, you've just transported your character from one table to the next, which is kind of cool. All right. So what else does Tabletop Simulator allow you to do? Well, as a GM, because that was supposed to be what the focus of this was. Let's switch back over to being a GM. We can switch over to the GM's table. You do have the cheat sheet. Sadly, it's a little hard to see, so you're probably going to want to have the GM sheet yourself if you want one of these. All this stuff is in the rule book, and it's relatively useful. I mean, like, do you really need a whole sheet here for critical injuries when you could just print one out or reference the rule book in the back fast and in a hurry? What else you've got here? One of the things that I absolutely love for the players is with Tabletop Simulator, if you put your mouse over any sheet that you've got, any object, and you hit Alt, it will pull that object up into the front of your screen so you can read what it says. In this case, this sheet down here, instead of having to zoom in and trying to read everything it says about the cheat sheet, like what can I do during combat? That's exactly what this sheet's for. You can just briefly look down, put your mouse over, hit Alt, and boom, cheat sheet has just filled your screen, and you can do this for all of them, and this table comes with cheat sheets. And it's so nice for new players to be able, and even for me, because I'm relatively new, like I haven't even GM'd yet, to just pull this up and be like, okay, I got a certain thing on a dice, what can I spend it on? Okay, I can spend an advantage to give me a boost die or give an ally a boost die, and then you can turn that into a narrative. So now you can just like, look, okay, here's the base mechanics. Now let's turn that into story. I'm gonna, as my character is taking cover behind the bar, he's gonna pull up his pistol, and to make that enemy not be able to aim very well for his next turn, I'm gonna shoot the Carillion Ale off the top of the bar and blast glass and booze into his eyes so it's hard for him to see. And now when that character tries to fire in the next turn, he's gonna roll at a disadvantage, and there's a higher chance that he's going to miss, which is pretty awesome. Ninja Squirrel, thank you so much for the $50 donation. Tat consults his datapad. I've gotten some overtime this last week. Thought I'd pass some on. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate the huge donation. That's awesome. And you guys keep the channel afloat, and I really do appreciate that. There's also some other cheat sheets for you, though. So this cheat sheet is for Starship Combat. This one I definitely need, because Starship Combat's got a lot of stuff that you can do, especially if your character is good at flying, or he's a good engineer. There's all kinds of roles that you can make while you're fighting off TIE fighters, your crew's running to their stations and getting into their turrets, while your pilot's, jumping on the controls and trying to burn away, and there's ranges and all kinds of fun stuff that you can do to tell a really epic narrative tale. Because that's all these tools are for. And having these cheat sheets for the players, especially starting out, where they don't know what they can do, they can, while they're waiting for their turn to come up, briefly run through and be like, okay, I know the hull took damage from that TIE fighter's last blast as he did his strafing run, so maybe I should run over and do some manual repairs. Maybe I should run over and do some damage control, or use like any of the, boost the shields on one side of the ship, and they could read quickly what those abilities do and what kind of role it'll take to be successful at them. It's awesome. Now, one of the things that I think Roll20 kind of lacks out on, I'm gonna load up a different version of this table real quick, one that I've already set up, because there is, let's change the song here. There is soundboards on this table, which is pretty awesome. Soundboards, we'll pull some out here. Music cubes, search. Let me pause the music, because I wanted a way for players to hear some of the ambient sounds while we're playing. If we're sitting inside a ship that's got the engines rumbling, and I wanted to have that like drone going on in the background, just to give it a feel a little bit more like they were in the characters and in the moment. So you can take inside these little boxes, the guy who made this is so cool. We can go sound loops and one shots. You can pull these cubes out and you drop them on this, and the guide on how to do it's right here, and it'll instantly give you stuff that you can click if you put the cube on it. There's more of these boards inside this bag right here, so we can pull out another board. We can drop it over here. Q and E, by the way, is to rotate stuff for some basic Tabletop Simulators controls, and then plus and minus is to make it bigger and smaller, and that works for just about everything. So we'll go in there, we'll grab, let's see, search here. Let's grab some ambient loops. When you open these bags for the first time, they have to download the assets. So let's grab this loop. Now we've got some ambient loops that we can mess around with. So say we're on board a starship. Now it sounds like we're on board a starship. There's also music bags in there and whatnot, but I'm not gonna play those because of probably copyright issues. So now we've got that drone of being on the bridge of a ship, or on a deck of a Star Destroyer. At the same time, if you really want to set the scene, you can go up to options and lighting, and you can bring the lighting intensity down, and maybe the ambient lighting down, and make it really dark and really creepy. Now you're on board an abandoned wreck of a ship. You've managed to get onto the bridge and bring the power online, so now you've got that little bit of a hum. Or let's grab Ebon Hawk. Oh, that music. The music's so good. There's so many things. Walking on a floor. The cave drip is a little low. I don't know if you guys can actually hear that, but there's this like dripping sound effect. So if they're in exploring a cave somewhere or a spooky dungeon kind of area, you can really set the scene. But it's not just about the sounds, and it's not just about the sound effects that you can do with the lighting effects. You can add objects into the game. So I'm gonna add in saved objects. Let's say we're gonna do combat. Now, in my experience, I like a map. I like to have a tactical map when playing. So let's grab up one of the tutorial maps for the game, Moss Shuta, and I think there's an object underneath it right now. Yeah, I think there's something underneath it. That's why it's kicked up. So we'll make it a little bit smaller. Moss Shuta is a city on Tatooine. We'll go ahead and go to toggle. We can lock this down so players can't move it around. It doesn't like fly off because there are physics involved. We'll turn the music back on. So now it's like nighttime on Moss Shuta, but we need to have some characters on there. We need to have some way of indicating where the characters are. So we'll go to objects, we'll go to components, and we'll go to figures, and we'll add a character figure. So there's a character figure. Let's say we want to make it my smuggler character, Roland. So what image did I use for him? So I'm gonna go to Google real quick. Gotta go grab image. You can watch me do this live. And we'll grab. Probably should define that as a Star Wars smuggler, not just a smuggler. Jedi Man 500, thank you for the $5 donation. Says not much, but here you go, man. Also, I don't know if you've played it, but Force and Destiny's great expansion on it. I have. We've actually are mixing the two together. I have all three of the core books. Let's just grab a picture to use for him. I don't actually see the one that I was using, oddly enough. We'll grab a PNG too, so I can show you guys exactly what happens. All right, we'll use this lady. So right now what I'm doing is I'm pulling an image off of Google. I just grab the URL, drop the URL in here and import it. And because it's PNG, we've just made, I can zoom in. Actually, why not just make it bigger? And we'll turn the lighting back up so you guys can see a little bit better. So options, lighting, turn the intensity up, turn the ambient up. It's probably a little bit too high, but options, lighting, ambient, move this out of the way. Sure. I don't know why these are always a little bit darker, but they are. But there you go. Now you've got a character icon. So you let your players choose what represents their character. And now you have a way of keeping track of where they are. I love the fact that this map is like raised off the ground. This is one of the maps that actually comes with Edge of the Empire. And you can move them around. Players can move them around. You can, if you hit F, you can flip over any object that you're clicking on. Mad Killer, thanks for the £2. Says that Ebon Hawk music, such good memories of KOTOR. Oh, I know. Wait till we get into the other assets that you can drop in that are available right now on the workshop. So that's one of the ways to do it. And there are all kinds of assets. On this particular map, if you subscribe to it, there are, where are they? Oh, yeah, right up here in the front. There are a couple of models. There's a little R2 unit right there. There's a Lambda shuttle. And there's a Stormtrooper, so let's go ahead and grab the Stormtrooper. We'll go to unlock, we'll highlight him and Control C to copy him. And let's say that our hero is walking through the streets. Maybe our hero is wanted. We use Q to rotate and comes across a patrol of Stormtroopers. And they recognize her from her wanted poster. And there you go, you've just set the scene. If you've got other objects subscribed, and there are tons of objects in the workshop for Tabletop Simulator, the GM can preset the scene to make this a little bit more interesting. Now he can describe it narratively as, like when the player says, "Oh crap, I see a bunch of stormtroopers. They pulled their weapons. What am I gonna do?" And this player says, "I want to go into combat. I'm gonna pull out my blaster and I'm gonna take a shot at the first stormtrooper. Boom, roll initiative, and we'll figure out who's faster and who gets to go first." Well, when the player's gonna inevitably ask, "What do I see around me?" and they'll have this map. You can just, keep it creative and keep it not actually on the map and say, well, on your left-hand side, there's a vendor stall or a couple of crates that you could use for cover. It looks thick enough that the bolts probably wouldn't go through it, so you could die behind cover there. On your right-hand side, there's a Jawa trader. The Jawas notice what's going on, or are probably about to run like hell. There's a few droid components and droid pieces all around the droid traders area that you could use for cover, and you can just keep describing this scene. Another thing you can do with this though, if you've got the components, let's actually go under games. I'm subscribed to multiple asset packs. So if we go under, we can actually scroll with middle mouse wheel here. Which one? Let's go under the KOTOR one. This is what I've just today was exploring. We'll expand this, and now we're looking into another table with all of its assets, and we can pull from this as a GM and prep our table for the game that evening. Let's say we're gonna grab, what's just like random stuff. Oh wait, I said we were talking about droid parts, so let's take out the droid props. So I just pulled this out of a totally separate mod. We'll search this bag, and okay, droid props, boom. There's a combat droid over in the corner, and it's shut down. It looks operational. If maybe the character has a lot of mechanic skill, that might be a fun thing that during combat, if they could run over and attempt to bring this droid online and use it somehow. So we can have just a few props over here to kind of designate what you're talking about. Or maybe your group has, or even one of your players even plays as a droid. Boom, you now have a droid icon. So there are all kinds of props, everything from walls that you could potentially use to build your own set pieces to crates and cargo boxes and spaceships. Speaking of spaceships, there's like a Lambda shuttle right over here. If I hit L, I'll unlock it, we'll bring it over here. And some of the model makers, like this is supposed to be a landing bay, right? Well, boom, now you've got an actual Lambda shuttle there for people to reference and say, oh yeah, during the story, my character noticed a Lambda shuttle flying over the city, and it looked like it was coming in for a landing, though through the city streets, it couldn't really see exactly where it landed. You had a general direction. And some of the models, though, have a lot of cool details. Like this one has 2 states. If you right-click it and you go to state, let's see, right-click state and you go to state 1, it goes into the fly mode. And you can turn physics off so it'll actually float. So if you're doing a space battle and you want to show that there is a shuttle here transporting maybe ground troops, and maybe your team of rebel operatives want to intercept that shuttle before it happens to land on the planet, because that could cause you trouble later, your group can fly in and try to disable its engines, and you can have that whole battle happen in space with a couple of props to give you an idea of like where things are. You don't necessarily need this to tell one of these stories, but it's just one of the options that you have using this platform, since you're not sitting around a table with your friends. If I was sitting around a table, I'd probably just use some of the models that I've got floating around, but there are some other fun things that you can do. So say your players go totally off the rails with the story, right? Say you had a plan, but your players were like, your plan is dumb and we're gonna go do our own thing. Or maybe just there's a character they particularly liked in it and it led in a weird place. If you're quick enough, and if you need a combat map, if you need something that like shows a map, you can just do a quick Google search of a map. So I'll just do a map of like Tatooine town. I'll just grab a random D&D map. So D&D map, go to Google, images. Sure, here's a D&D dungeon. Say your team ended up going underground in some old Sith tomb on a planet that they had picked up they went off. You weren't expecting it though. Like they totally went off the rails to a whole new story, and you're in a combat situation where you need a map for this. You want a combat map for this to make it make sense, or to give them something a little bit more to explore. So one of the things you could do is you go to options and you go to components. You can go to custom here, and you can pull out. I could use almost any of these. We'll go with a board. I can import a URL, import, and in all of 2 minutes while multitasking and narrating this and talking to you guys, I managed to pull out a combat board for the players to explore, and in this, on the fly, you as a GM have something to reference while you're making, you're building this narrative. And I actually really like this map. This is really cool. As like a Sith old buried temple, or as, it could be anything. I mean, this could be a Tusken base of some kind. This could be Fort Tusken underneath it. This could be a smuggler's outpost. This could be a Jedi temple. They could have all kinds of fun stuff. And Google there's so many awesome assets out there that you can use to help tell your story. So, freaking, when does Roger come out? Yeah, I see you, Lucian. Roger's my B1 droid in Galaxies from the last stream we did. So what other things does this have that adds, I think, to like the tools that you can use, other than just like the cheat sheets, which you've got, which are great. This is the range engagements and how hard, what the roll should be at what range, like how hard is it to hit. So if you're at short range, it's 1 difficulty dice. If you're medium range, it's 2, and then depending on the weapon. Very neat, very neat. There's even a Star Destroyer floating around in the back there. As for tools that this mod author has created for a GM, go to the next song. There are all kinds of minis on here that you can go and search through. There is one issue that I have with this. So when it comes to ships, if you want like a model of a ship, he's actually got some really great models that you can use. If you want to like you want to show the players like, you're in this shit now, a couple of Star Destroyers happen to be orbiting or blockading the planet that you're trying to get to. How do you want to handle this? And then you just watch the players figure it out, see what kind of ideas they come up with, and you can actually have the models just sitting there. Is it necessary? No, but it's fun. But one of the issues that I do have is when you go under things like, is it weapons? No. NPC cards, that's the one. Here's the one. So he's generated a ton of NPC cards for the GM to use to help flush out some of the narrative that he wants to do. So let's pull out some cards. 284 rival cards, right? That's a lot of cards. That's a lot of NPCs that you could use to tell a story. The problem is they're not named. They're numbered. Yeah. So when you go to search, you can't say Tusken because you can't search them. So there are 280, but you're gonna have to like sift through these. So as a GM, that's kind of a pain in the ass. And all they really are is stat cards to give you an idea of like what would a 2-1B medical droid stats be? What skills would it have? It's kind of neat to scroll through this and be like, man, I need something to make this world space feel a little bit different. So I'm gonna go through the cards, but I just wish these were. Sometimes I'm looking for a very specific race or species, and I'm not quite sure what their stats would be, and I don't really want to make it up on the fly. I'd love to be able to search, but I can't. Cause yeah, that's a lot of cards, right? So we'll go ahead and get rid of this. The rest of them seem to be labeled as well. There's everything else that you're gonna need to, if players take, like I don't have any dice other than the ones that came with the starter sets, the 2 starter sets that we bought for this particular game. So just pull my camera up so I can see what you guys see. So when I need to roll for like, if I need to roll a D100, so that's the dice I'm talking about, so get a little closer. I need to roll a D100 because a player took a critical. It's one of the mechanics of the game. The nice thing about using this to do it is that I don't have to go out and buy dice. I can go to objects, I can go to components, I can go to dice, we'll go plastic dice, and I want 2 D10s. So actually, yeah, take 2 D10s. So come here, and then we can grab these guys. To roll, you can grab them and literally whip them around, and they'll roll that way. There we go. They'll roll that way. You can look at them, or you can just put your mouse over them. They'll actually tell you what they are. So there's 10, there's a 4, so that would be, what is it, like 104, I guess? You can grab them for rolling and hit R, and it'll just roll them into the air, so you don't have to go throwing them across the table, because you know how players are going to get. They're going to want to throw things around, and chances are, they grab these, they're going to throw them off the table. when they roll them, if they try to roll them onto the table directly, that's one of the nice things about them having these little like rolling areas. But you can also just hit R, throw them into the air, and they'll roll. Pretty legit. But you still have to go through every card. Only for the NPCs. It looks like everything else is actually named. So if we go to armor and clothing, give it a second, that's just the default texture. So the players are shopping for armor and clothing, and you want to tell them what the vendor has at the moment, or say they want to buy a very particular thing. You can now go into the deck. See, these are all named, and say they want padded armor. I can look up padded armor, and I can literally, it's the padded armor from Star Wars Galaxies. They even made custom images for this. You can grab that card and hand it to them. Straight up hand them the card. That way they don't have to remember what gear and equipment they have. They actually have the cards in front of them. They should still write them down on their character sheet, but it's neat to have a reference. It's one of the reasons why I bought, to have a little bit more inspiration, I bought some of the little like card packs for some of the adversaries and civilian populations in the universe, and what their stats are, what their abilities are. So nicely, you can search stuff in these. Or you could potentially randomly draw from this if you wanted to make like a vendor's. There's Mandalorian armor right there. 7,000 credits. It even gives you the value too. That's nice. I mean, of course, it's up to the GM, because value is based on the initial value of the item, and then you want to think about like where that item is from, where you're at right now, how hard would that item be to get in that area, how rare it is, things like that. Power armor? What? What? Defense soak. It's got all kinds of stuff on it. Wow. 9,000 credits starting. Oh, that's cool. That's really anti-concussive armor. Very neat. You can make your own cards too and import them into the game, which is even cooler. So if you want to because these are all just references, right? You could make your own stuff that fits the game world. It's up to you to balance your own game and balance it for your players, and to give them things that, makes their characters feel impressive and important, and customized to be unique. Jedi robes? Concealing robes. Okay, very cool. All right, so we talked about some of the neat things, like there are soundboards built in here that will play the sounds for all of the players. We've talked about some of the interesting models and characters that you can grab out of here. We talked about actually being able to pull out stuff from other. Okay, let's look at that, because you guys should see how awesome this is. So one of the things I've been messing around today is with, if we scroll through this, the KOTOR tiles and props set. If we go to expand on this, we looked at a couple of items, but there's more to it than just what I've shown. I showed a couple of droid props. There are animated NPCs. Let's grab those. There are Taurus. Let's do the bar. Sweet. We'll just grab a couple of the examples. So for the bar, we'll search in this. Now we have assets from a totally different mod, and some of these assets is the literal bar from KOTOR, like the whole thing. You can set up a combat encounter here. You can set it up with, we'll throw a Hoth Trooper in there for raisins. And if you zoom in at the right angle, you actually can see like inside the base, which is kind of cool. So that might be really neat for streaming and stuff. But for a combat encounter, now the players can see where a table is when they kick it over to use it for cover, or if they're gonna dive and slide over one as they pull their pistol out using both of their maneuvers. There's all kinds of story elements there that kind of help you picture the scene a little bit better, especially if I fail at describing it in a way, the players can be like, well, what's that over there? What's that over there? And I can go ahead and tell them. And there are different pieces of it, and you can connect these. And there's a few of the ships in here, but more importantly, and what I really like, search. There are NPCs, and a couple of them, Athorian. I was trying to think, if you're talking to something like an Athorian, how could you do the voice? How could you have the voice come across to give them an idea of what it sounds like other than just describing it, which is something that I figured I would have to do, which I don't mind, but... How cool is that? Let's make you bigger, Mr. Athorian. Let's make you bigger so we can actually see you. I really hope the mod author who made who put this together continues to add to it, because this is just awesome. And there's a few other characters that you can grab out of here. There's a Gan. Awesome. Very cool. Like I said, it's all unnecessary to tell the story, but it adds something to it, and you can surprise your players, I think, in a fun way with adding little things like that, little details that they aren't expecting. So what is the goal of the game, William? Well, it's kind of, the game that we're talking about is very D&D-esque, right? It is that kind of role-playing game where you sit down with a group of players, they come up with characters with whatever level of backgrounds they want to. The player, or the GM, is the world space, the storyteller who brings them into that world. The players, though, have free will to make decisions the way they want to. And depending on your GM, it can be as linear or as kind of open worldy as that GM plays, however they are. So it's cool. It's really cool. Oh, I don't know if we'll ever use it. I like the Chance Cube reminded me of this. If anybody remembers the Toydarian with the Chance Cube that was weighted on one side, the Jedi totally cheated using force powers to push it in the direction he wanted. But this is what reminded me. There is a Sabacc deck. Straight up, like full-on deck. I don't remember the rules to this. I remember they were sort of based on 21. But you can shuffle the... Oh, let's put that back on there. You can, if you hold and click, if you're ever picking up something that's considered a container, like a deck of cards or a bag that has other things in it, click and hold. That took me a hot minute to figure out, and it was driving me crazy because I kept trying to like drag the deck around and I kept drawing cards. But click and hold, grab it, give it a shake. You've just shuffled the deck, and then you can start dealing out cards. Hitting F will flip the card over, and they've actually got the numbers on there. So it'd be neat to, like, if you've got a player, he knows how to play Sabacc, maybe he's that smuggler character, you could actually have them play a game of Sabacc betting credits that could further the story. It's just one of those cool things that a GM could potentially do. Challenge the players in fun ways. You can group select, flip things over as well. And I believe if I select them all and I shake them, they'll go into a horrible pile, or, come on, can I not just like drag you into the deck? No, I guess I can't. I have to do them one at a time. That's too bad. But I don't want to clean it up. Or grab them all and delete it. Alden, thank you for the $10 donation. He says, Sheck, how does this one join this? I want to Alden this up with one rolls for days. Well, I'm keeping it a smaller group, though I'm gonna bet, now that I've been talking about it more, people are gonna get in on wanting to run games like this on the Discord, I hope. I know there was some talk about it when I had mentioned it earlier that some people have been GMing. But I've got 4 players right now. I don't want to go any farther than that because I want to get comfortable GMing and I want to find my stride. And I want to get to know the players as they play with their characters. So press G to group the cards. Oh, is that how you do it? Well, if I hit the back button, you bring the cards back. There's a back button if you screw everything up. Cancel. One of the things it keeps asking, let's go back one more time. Cancel. I should tell it not to ask me that again. You know what, fine, open it. And I can show what that is that keeps doing. Rewind time, and the card's back. Why aren't you going back and giving me the cards? It's not wanting to do it for some reason. Very strange. But one of the things that it keeps asking is, do you want to open a website? Because in this Tabletop Simulator, you actually have a tablet. You can type things into it. You can go to like YouTube. I won't type into it now because who knows what YouTube will pull up. But normally when you load up this map the first time, it'll auto want to load an ambient track for Tatooine to give you that like desert sound effect, the blowing winds and the Tuskens in the background going, which is kind of cool. It is definitely cool, and all the players will hear that. The tablet is a little bit buggy though. Sometimes it doesn't want to refresh pages, especially on YouTube. It won't want to play the video. So, excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. But everything else that you need is here. It has the critical cards. It even has some maps to get started with. So if you want to play one of the early adventures, say you buy the Edge of the Empire book and you want to play through that adventure that it comes with, or the Edge of the Empire starter kit, which comes with the dice, and it comes with a cut down rule book. Actually, it comes with this rule book. It's a much more cut down one than the 500 page sucker. This has a story in it that you can play through. That what's awesome is the maps for, if you buy the pack, the rule book isn't with it, but the maps are. So you can go into here and you can grab. You have to go through this. I don't remember which one's which, but it does have the maps for it that you can pull out. And these are, by the way, not it. But there are some interesting maps in here, like this, because this is awesome. Sarlacc Pit. The Great Carcoons. Carcoon? I think it's Carcoon. Carcoon Pit. Also, the critical cards. One of the things that I really like about how this system works, critical injuries. We'll go ahead and grab the deck, let it load. Critical injuries in the Star Wars RPG are the way your character dies, basically. So every time your character runs out of health and he collapses from his wounds, and maybe he's bleeding out, he will have to roll a D100. Between these cards range, if we look at if we hold down Alt, if we look at the top left-hand corner, D1 through 5 is this particular card. We can go ahead and go to search. And once you roll a D100, you will have to take one of these cards, and these will be applied to your character. So if you roll, say you rolled a 103, this card is a 101 to 105, you'll take this critical wound, you'll be maimed, and those effects you'll have to deal with it. Also, every critical you take adds plus 10 to your next critical roll, because the higher the number, the worse the roll is, the worse the wound is, and some of them are real bad, including this one. If you roll greater than 151, your character is straight up dead. And people are like, well, it's really hard to die in this game. I noticed that in the forums a lot. It's really hard to die. Well, okay. If you roll a 141 to 150, you die at the end of the round. If you roll a 131 to 140, you're bleeding out and you die. If you roll gruesome injury, this one will permanently lower one of your stats. That's really bad, but it's totally cool for a story perspective. You just, during a fight with a group of stormtroopers and an Imperial officer, though you in a heroic last stand, you fired off your pistol, killing one of the stormtroopers, and took a round to the head and collapsed from your wounds. Your buddies managed to drag you out before you bled out and threw you into a back at the rebel base. You survived, but because you took that blow to the head, you'll never quite be the same man you were, -1 to intellect. Like that kind of crazy thing, right? That storytelling at its finest. There's also like you immediately lose a limb. You can no longer use your left hand until you can get a replacement mechanical hand, or you just don't have that arm anymore, and then everything you try to do with your left hand has a disadvantage. Like there's cool stuff like that, and you definitely can die. There are weapons that will immediately, this is more game mechanic-y stuff and less tabletop stuff, but there are weapons that will raise that critical by 30, meaning that you're almost on death's doorstep as soon as you get hit by one. Mostly melee weapons that can like carve you up into pieces, but. All right. Do you guys have any questions about the Tabletop Simulator in the chat? Yeah, Q Monster's talking about the critical system too. I love it. I love it too. I think it's a really cool concept. And it is Star Wars Tomb of Horrors. What? That sounds like its own little story mission, like a Halloween mission. That would be a lot of fun, actually, because in the Star Wars universe, there is basically a zombie virus type story that you could go with. Star Wars Galaxies is using it right now to celebrate. Star Wars Galaxies, the Legends server, celebrate Halloween. They've got a whole haunted house. Pretty neat. So are there X-Wings for this? As in like a model? I believe so. Fighter minis. There's all kinds of minis for props. So as the GM, I can drag in some stuff that can help tell the story. So say we want an X-Wing. There's an X-Wing squadron. I know there are X-Wing minis in other mods that you could use. There's a captured. Biggs Darklighter's captured TIE fighter? Interesting. That's neat. These are models, I believe, from the TIE Fighter games. Bum, 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 bum. So there's all kinds of just resources. And you could also go to Google and pull off images and just use those as well. You could use what does the paintbrush do? Oh yeah, let's talk about some of these tools on the left-hand side. So let's get back over here. Say, for example, just for example's sake, we'll grab a map real quick. So we'll go into the maps and we'll grab, actually we already have a bag of maps out, don't we? We'll grab this little hallway. Just like some type of barracks on board a ship somewhere. Say the stormtroopers are waking up and there's combat to be had. And actually, these are like little tiles. This is cool. We can connect these together to make this like a big room. So let's move this over here. Maybe that's a doorway entrance, and this is like the route to the hangar bay or something. So I'll make the map a little bit bigger. For example's sake, you are playing and you need to make a shot. So your character, come with me, Stormtrooper. Your character, you're the Stormtrooper. And you're making a shot at a control panel that's over here. And you're wondering what the range is because you've dictated as a GM that 5 blocks is considered short range, and anything past that's going to be considered medium range for the game mechanics' sake. The tools over here will allow you to measure out or do any of those things that you need to do. So if you need to paint something, like right now, there's a fire going on. I want to draw with red, apply. Oh, you're only letting me draw on this map. I don't know why you're not letting me draw on that map. We need to lock all this down first. Maybe that's the rule. There we go. You have to lock it to do the thing. So I control Z to get rid of it. So there's a fire going on over here because somebody set off a grenade. So you can just draw on the map real quick and dictate that, like, you can't get through here. There's a fire. Or you could use another tool like the line, is it the line tool? Yeah, the line tool, measuring tool, to figure out what the range is. Because maybe you said, all right, well, a few blocks are short range, so that's like 14 meters. So you're going to be shooting out from 30 meters, so you're going to be at medium range. It's a way to measure space, which is really nice to be able to figure out real quick and to point things out, because I believe the other players can see this line when you draw it. So if you're like, I'm going to shoot at this guy, but maybe your character is around the corner here. Oh, I locked him down. Hit L. Maybe you use your movement to move over here, and you're like, well, I want to shoot at that control panel that we were talking about earlier, which is on the side of the wall here. Just using dice as the... well, the GM could say, you really can't do that because there's a wall in between you and that control panel. You're going to have to use a movement to get into position and get an angle on it. So... still a little questionable. You might be able to see the edge of whatever it is you're shooting at over there. But if it's against the wall, definitely not, and you're gonna have to move up. So, one more tool. There's also this little button which allows you to flick things. Literally, you just flick it across the room. Come back, Stormtrooper. I guess this is used for a lot of some of the games on the workshop right now where you can, like, flick things into other things and play around with the physics. Kevin, thanks for the $5 donation. He says, whoa, just woke up, Captain. What are you doing? We're running through some of the functionalities of Tabletop Simulator that I found are really cool for the RPG Edge of the Empire, Star Wars RPG, that I'm going to be starting on Monday. So, D&D and Star Wars. Yeah, that's kind of the idea, basically. What other tools we got? Joint. I haven't messed around with this too much, but I believe this allows you to join together different blocks. The gizmo allows you to rotate objects and move them around. So if I really want this chance die to be a very particular position, I can click it with this, and I can type it in. I can turn gravity off on it so it stays above the table. We right-click it, and we go to physics. We can actually turn the gravity off so it'll stay in a certain position once we move it there. Let's move in a little bit closer so we can see what's going on. And I want to take you up. Now you're no longer affected by gravity, so if you wanted like a couple of TIE fighters to be a set piece object, you can totally pick it up like that. I think there's a shortcut to this too to make it a little bit easier to pick it up and down and to maneuver it. Just don't remember what it is. To a table flip. We'll flip the table before we're done. But yeah. Oh, here's a cool tool. So for a GM, you're setting up an area and you don't want the players to see what's going on in some of the rooms, but you've already set them up. So what you can do is you can go to this tool, the zone tool, click hidden, and draw a box around what you want. Now, the players can only see here. They can't see these rooms in case you want to surprise them with something particular. They can't even see these cards around the table or this dice because it's all in the gray square, which is GM only. That's exactly what these squares are. These are hidden squares that only those players can see them. Or maybe you only want one player to see it, in which case I believe you can change the color somehow. I haven't actually used it, but there you go. You can click it to get rid of it, and boom, you've just revealed what's going on in that room as they walk through it. And they find that it's actually been an ambush the entire time. 6 stormtroopers are aiming their E11s right down the barrel at our heroes. Roll for initiative. One of the other controls that you can use that probably really important is to point things out. The other players can see your mouse, so that's one way you can point things out, or you can look over them and hit tab and put an arrow on them. I am using a lot of mods, but it's cool how the mod system works in this because the other players don't have to be subscribed to the mods. They don't have to have already downloaded them. Once you're subscribed to the workshop mod, you can click it, and instead of just loading up that workshop, you can go to expand and you can draw from it. So we can just, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now, and I can totally pull this out, drop it into a game in the middle of the game, and have a YT1300 on the table to give everybody an idea of like, all right, Rebel reinforcements have arrived, and to your surprise, it's not X-Wings or Y-Wings like you thought, but an old freighter, YT-2400, has come out of hyperspace. It's 2 turrets on the top and bottom spinning wildly into position as they line up their first shots on the TIE fighters that are engaging our heroes. Like that kind of thing, and they're not gonna expect it, and boom, they've got a visual. A lot of the players won't know what a 2300 is. But when they see that, they're gonna know exactly what it is. Oh, it's like the Falcon, but it's got a different like shape to it. Freaking cool. Kevin, thanks for the $5. Looking at the map as it is, it looks like a bounty hunter came in and graffitied the floor. And why? Space gangsters, yes. Actually kind of does. You totally use this for graffiti. Speaking of filling out a space with graffiti, and I actually really like that idea. Using it as graffiti, like writing a message, maybe the rebellion has arrived, or your players. Your players want to draw, oh, that's a really cool idea. Your players want to let the Empire know that this was their doing, but it was the rebellion's doing. So as the GM, you can really haphazardly draw, you know, the Rebel logo, oh, this is terrible. The Rebel logo on the map. As they say, like, okay, I'm gonna take out my spray canister, because maybe your player bought one at the local shop, and spray, you know, tags that sucker. Or maybe they tag it with their group's logo. They've come up with a name for their group. Some cool stuff to do. That's really awesome. All right, so let's erase this and this and this. But say we want to give this a little bit more like 3 dimensions. Like as a GM, I've got some extra time this week. I can add some more stuff to it. So we're gonna go into games, objects, components. One of the ones that I've been having a lot of fun with, components. No, not components, games, the workshop. Let's go back under, actually let's look under the sci-fi tile pack. This is one that I just downloaded, haven't messed around with it. Doorways, corners, walls, doors. This is literally, let's grab the pointer, pieces to build your own 3-dimensional map. This is awesome. Let's take some doors and some walls and some doorways, some corners. Let's just grab all these map bits. I just love how modular this is. I don't have to have like, I don't have to pre-game it and say, okay, I'm gonna need that asset from this mod, I'm gonna need that asset from this mod. So I gotta have all these mods put into like my load order like Skyrim works. No, you can just go to town with it. So for instance, we're gonna unlock these. Let's get rid of them. Stormtrooper, you come with me. Whoops. Let's delete the floor he's on. Grab the Stormtrooper. Let's get rid of the rest of this. So unlock, unlock, delete, delete. Let's see what these walls look like. Oh, that's cool. It's like a support pillar, a doorway, a straight up wall. So if the GM has a lot of time on his hands, he can definitely set up, like, where's a floor? Doors, corners. I didn't grab floors. I only grabbed doors and corners. Oh, this is awesome. You can have the players have like a full-on 3D model of where they're walking through. Let's grab a doorway. And the modeler did a damn good job. And then you'd have the floor underneath it already, so it looked a bit better. I think it even said there were doors. Like, can you open the doors? That'd be really cool. Are they animated? Sure. Give me that door. Ha! The door blocks your path. Can the mechanic open it up? Can the slicer hack the data terminal on the side of it? Some fun stuff in here. Thank you, Playing Shack. Tabletop Simulator. We're exploring how to use this and what kind of advantages using Tabletop Simulator over something like Roll20. Roll20 has a lot of cool stuff too, but it doesn't have this three-dimensional literal tabletop for you to play on, which is pretty neat. I am a little worried that this could potentially be more of a distraction than a boon for players, so I will try to get back with you guys on how I feel about it after having played with it a bit. But I think that's going to be up to the GM to just like keep it focused on the storytelling, use things to tell the story in a way that don't distract from the story. So objects and whatnot. And being able to look over my players' character sheets real quickly to be like, okay, so let me explain to you how a mechanic works. I can just see it. As a GM, it's really nice to be able to see their character sheet and be like, okay, well, this is how you'd form your dice pool because of your stats and because of the skills that you've trained. You're particularly good at this one thing, and here's the dice that you're going to need to do that. There's the example. Have at it. All right. I think I covered everything. I mean, you guys get the point. There's a lot of cool stuff here. As a player, so if I switch over to a player, let's go to change. I'm gonna be red player again. As a player, you actually have access to tokens that you can use. So I can pull out stim pack token and put it out here on the table to remind myself that I've taken a stim pack, because for every stim pack you take in this, it decreases how effective the next stim pack will be. One stim pack will give you 5 health. Think of it like a health potion. Whereas the next one will give you 4 and 3 and 2, and then you might start suffering deleterious effects because you keep popping drugs. Health tokens for players to keep an eye on. Criticals is what I would assume this would be for. How many criticals have you taken so far is one way of doing it, so you can use these health tokens. Interesting that they give you those. More importantly, down here in the bottom right, and I didn't notice this beforehand, was dice. Here's where all the player dice are. So when they're forming up their dice pools, they can just reach in here and grab out their ability dice and their skill dice, and their force dice if they happen to be force sensitive. And then when they're doing their rolls, they can literally, in this little box, roll the dice and throw them everywhere. That's why I prefer using this. Hit R. Well, the workshop mods are free, DJ. But he is saying that this particular game is $20 on Steam. I don't know what it is right now. I know the price fluctuates based on sales they've got going on. I bought a 4-pack, and I think it was like $48 or something like that. So, and then sat in my inventory for quite a while. I'm gonna answer some more questions. Ooh, the YT2400. Yeah, let's look at a couple more of the models. The models are beautiful. Let's switch back to being the GM. I actually got some saved objects. If you find objects particularly that you like or that you've customized in some way and you want to save them, you can just right-click Save the Object, and you'll be able to drop them in. So, one of the players for the upcoming campaign wants to be a mechanic. The mechanic needs a proper workshop to do anything of, real importance. If he wants to build something, he's gonna need a workshop. Well, I've saved a few workshop-like benches. So when he does like upgrades to the ship, potentially, he could upgrade it to make it easier for him to do certain crafting checks. So if he wants to make a certain object or whatever. There's all kinds of fun stuff in here. And these are just things that I've found. There's a freaking blockade runner. Because, yeah, because you may need a blockade runner for, maybe you need an old fire spray. There you go, there's a fire spray. Maybe you need an old Gazanti cruiser. There's a Gazanti cruiser. Maybe you need an Imperial one with TIE fighters in the bottom of it. I do have one of those floating around somewhere. Y-Wings? Sure. If you need to represent a large-scale space battle, this is the way you can do it. You can even go grab a JPEG of the range bands and place them within the range bands to get an idea. Or just dictate to the players, okay, within these amount of squares is the distance that those ships are in before they can start firing at each other. Kind of cool. Will you stream this? Nah, we talked about that earlier. We're not going to stream the first session or the first few sections because we want to see how comfortable we are with it. All kinds of random stuff in here. So you got Z95. That's cool. There are actually some really neat exploring objects. Oh, I haven't checked these out yet. Let's check these out. So I wanted some objects that were less Star Warsy and more just like objects that you'd see in a world space. And I found this one. Because I wanted to see like pickaxes. You know, what if you're in a mine somewhere? Even in Star Wars universe, you'd have pickaxes, right? So there you go, a couple of pickaxes. A bottle, if they found something interesting. An old lantern. A crappy bed. If you're in like a building. So there's all kinds of models. A map? Map's cool. I didn't know that was in there. Neat. Books. No library. I was really hoping there'd be a bookshelf in here. Urban building? Like full-on building? Yep, no shit. Full-on building. All right. Dressers, cabinets, fun stuff. Let's see other components that we've got. Workshop. I picked up a couple other workshop packs that I wanted to check out. I mean, this has got to be the most impressive because there's so much stuff in here. The Bag-O props, miscellaneous props. Here we go. And there's so much stuff in here that fits within the Star Wars universe for playing a game like this. So this is the KOTOR assets pack that you can get. Everything from simple things like a chair, which we can zoom into. Kevin, thanks for the $5. Could I carry and use a refrigerator as a melee weapon in this game? Carry and use a refrigerator as a melee weapon. Could you use it as a weapon in a situation? I would, as a GM, I would say yes. So say your stormtroopers are about to come through a doorway and you're in a kitchen area. You could potentially, if you're strong enough and you can pass your athletics check, push a refrigerator on top of the first stormtrooper that comes through the door, crushing them or pinning them underneath it. I would totally be awesome. I think that would be awesome. Carrying one around though, that would be an encumbrance problem. How would you actually carry a refrigerator around? That would be ridiculous. You would have penalties to everything and a little bit crazy. Oh look, that guy didn't make it. A broken gonk droid. Oh, broken gonk droid. Is there a working gonk droid? Or are they just all broken? They're all broken. Oh, it's probably under droids, that's why. It's a whole nother bag. Beds? Yeah, straight up beds. Look at that. Garbage piles. Just ways to adding a little bit more detail to the maps. And there's so much stuff in here. Wall decorations. What? That's disturbing. Barrels. Gotta get that loot. And the fun thing about this stuff is that it could spur your imagination as well as the players when you see it. And they'll be like, oh, I want to use an item in some crazy way that the GM never even thought of. Okay, sure, go for it. Make the roll and see if it's, you know, can I do the thing? Maybe. You can try. That's the fun thing about being a GM. You can try. And if the roll hits something high, that crazy idea was just crazy enough to work. Or it depends on your strength and size, Inquisitor says. Yeah, but there's a limitation to that. Even if you're like a basilisk, you know, the guy that was in the diner in episode 2, I think it was, with the 4 arms. You're a strong character, but a fridge? I don't know, like a fridge door, maybe. There are rule sets, though, for impromptu weapons. So. can you make crafts in this game for like a campaign, like a land speeder, but it's custom? There is an entire rule book about modifications and enhancements that you can get from Fantasy Flight Games, and one of them is custom vehicle, and it is literally, this vehicle is your signature vehicle. This literally is your vehicle. You love this thing. You can do all these cool changes to it and make it your ride and customize it in the way that matters to you. That's one of the things people are like, oh, I want to be a Jedi because they'll have the most interesting story options. And I'm like, well, pilot is a really cool idea. And if you're focused on like that one thing, you want to be one of the best pilots in the universe, as just an example, there's a whole slew of things that you could potentially do that, while maybe not as awesome as a Jedi in melee combat, you will shine in your own right within your custom, I don't know, Z95 that you've modified yourself or you've had modified. Like, there's all kinds of rules and fun things that you can do. Open universe, that's the fun of these tabletop RPGs, to do whatever the hell you can come up with within the logic of the character and of the world space. Then you can have a move in combat called the refrigerator parry. Text. Or you open the door and you like slam it on somebody's head. It's a stud. The fun thing about the dice in this particular game is how open to interpretation it is. Because unlike D&D, and I haven't played D&D, so don't judge me too harshly here, but from what I understand and from watching stuff like Critical Role, in this, unlike D&D, when you roll, you can succeed at a roll and still have threat, which means that something bad happens. So, okay, you're trying to open a locked door, for example, and you roll to see if you can use your mechanics to like jerry-rig that sucker and open it. And you succeed. You get enough successes to get the door open, but you generated 2 threat, and that 2 threat could be you, while reaching into the system and working on it with your mechanics skill, busting out your tools, you got the door open, but your favorite tool just snapped. And now you're without a toolkit until you can replace that tool. On the flip side of that, it could be really bad. You get a despair, which is like, if a critical is amazing and awesome, a triumph is what they call it in this, a despair is the opposite of that. Something just went really bad. You got a 1 on a roll in D&D kind of thing. So while you're messing around in that system and you're trying to open the door, you succeeded, but you got enough successes to make sure the door opened, but you also rolled a despair, meaning that you tripped the security system and there are half a dozen stormtroopers now running down the hall to find out what just happened. That's how the story immediately flips the script and changes based on those dice rolls. I love it. I'm so excited for this. And I drew all over this. Yeah, why can't I erase you? Oh no, are you supposed to be there? Maybe you're no, I drew on that. I don't know why it's not letting me erase it. Weird. Sometimes the draw tool doesn't really want to cooperate. Yes, we got some donations. Let me say thank you real quick. I am not trying to troll you. I used an anvil as a weapon in 5th edition D&D. I love to improvise during situations. I watch a lot of Jackie Chan movies. Oh, so yeah, you're talking about what I'm talking about, which is, in the situation, this makes sense. Yeah, refrigerator's a weapon, totally. There's a rule set for it, and it'll be based on how strong your character is, your brawn level. And there are rule sets for the weapon breaking. Kane the Prophet, thanks for the 5. He says, hey, Cap, absolutely love your stuff. You helped me during a very dark time in my life. So thanks. Also, just got enlisted into ARMCO and bought a hoodie. Well, I hope you enjoy your hoodie, and I'm glad that I could have, I helped during that period in your life. I've been there. So I appreciate the kind words, I really do. One Shot Outlaw says, hi. Hi. And thank you for the 10. Thank you for the support. D&D has a very similar mechanic, Centurion 128 says, but it's mostly up to the DM and the DC of the task to help the player try to accomplish. Yeah, it's based on how high or low the roll is, right? So, as I understand it, if you roll a 20, a natural 20, it's like the best thing ever. You've succeeded at the task. Not only that, but you've exceeded flawlessly, and the GM will, or the DM will run with it in a fun way. I feel like Indiana Jones must have been using that system and got a really good roll. Yep. Indiana Jones had the best rolls. Gotta save the hat. Could you imagine that roll? The player, the GM, like he rolls, you roll, oh man, you succeed at getting underneath the door. And that was the athletics check. So you like slide underneath this big heavy stone door that's coming down. But you got one setback, not setbacks, guys. Threat. You gained one threat. It's this one right here. So something bad happened when you rolled under that, and your favorite hat that all the characters always make fun of you for is on the other side of the door. The door is closing, and you can make another check. Probably gonna be, I don't know, would that be an athletics check? Coordination check. Being nimble. It could be athletics, it could be coordination, but you do another skill check because that player really wants that hat back, has to stick his hand back underneath the door as it closes to grab his hat. That whole Indiana Jones scenario literally wrapped up in dice rolls. And if it goes badly, a giant stone door crushes your character's hand. And if it doesn't, heroic moment of you grabbing your favorite hat and running out. That's this kind of game in a nutshell right there. Guardian. I once used a wooden door as a shield and a fence post as a club. And I sang while butchering orcs and goblins. I was a bard who had 20 strength. Awesome. Kevin says, thanks for the $5, by the way. So if my party in this game captured a Rancor, could my party during a final boss fight airdrop on the Rancor onto the boss? You can do whatever makes sense in the world space. So, and it depends on your GM, because there are off-the-rail campaigns that are, you know, all that kind of random crazy stuff happens all the time. It's open to interpretation. For me, I'm interested in running a very, a campaign where the world feels real, where the actors play the roles that they would play. They would make the decisions that they would make. They would keep it in the realm of possibility. So potentially, if you happen to have a Rancor for some reason and you had it in a cargo bay that could be opened and deployed and the fall wouldn't kill it, I wouldn't say it couldn't happen, but the series of events to make that happen and not turn horribly against you, you'd have to make so many good checks and so many rolls and so many good rolls to make that work, because it's a Rancor and it's probably gonna eat through your ship or rip it apart. You know, like, how would you handle that? But that's the fun, is letting players try out those crazy ideas and build up to those moments. There's actually some really cool mechanics with, I'm gonna grab up some models while we talk about this, with how, like, if you're playing as a rebel character, there's a system called duty in this that allows, I should be on my saved objects actually. It allows you to build up reputation with the Rebel Alliance, and you can cash this in as kind of like a point system to get support from the rebels. And that support can come in a lot of different ways. In our campaign with Control, we could have, my party didn't want to do it, but we could have called in a Y-Wing bombing run on this installation that had a bunch of assholes in it, but no, they were like, let's sneak in. And I was like, screw that, proton torpedo the shit out of those guys. I want to see some Y-Wings. But my character was overruled, which is, it's legit. The event ended up being a lot of fun. Save objects. Some B-Wings. Let's put some stuff on the map while we chat. Rancor, I choose you. What is this? Oh, this is the Ghost Shuttle. Nice. A-Wings. Yep, gotta have some A-Wings up in there. A-Wing Squadron. And the rules are open enough to interpretation that they don't lock you down in a way that a good GM can have a lot of fun with them. Especially like how space battles work. And how minion grouping works. I could see large-scale space battles being possible, where the players have to do a particular thing to help sway the tide of battle one way or the other. On the flip side, the way that duty works, if you're playing as a criminal character, there's something that's analogous to sort of like duty, which is called obligation, but instead of getting resources that you can kind of spend with Rebel Alliance, you owe a debt. And that debt will weigh heavily on you until you do something to relieve some of that debt. It could be taking out a loan from the Hutts. If you ignore it, you could be taking strain of constantly worrying about something that really matters to you, this debt. Or the Huts could just send bounty hunters after you because you didn't pay the credits that you owe them. And that's just one example. There's a ton of examples of how the obligation system works. But it's very cool, very character driven too. The Force users have to deal with morality, and the decisions they make will affect their sway between the light and the dark side. The dark side offers easy power, whereas the light side takes effort to not be an ass. And yeah, you start shifting between the light and the dark side. They're always dealing with that. It's kind of fun. Guardsman, thanks for the $5. He says, I was once an Imperial Guardsman. Change the song. I was once an Imperial Guardsman who was named Guy. Personality-wise, he was Lenny from Mice and Men. 2 feet tall. Or 7 feet tall. I also had an electric sword. An electric sword. Interesting. Oh, man. You can make almost any character you can think of. You can make any character you can think of in this, and it's crazy. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. All right, guys. I'm gonna wrap up the stream here. I just wanted to show off kind of what Tabletop Simulator can allow you to do for players that are thinking about being a GM. I know I went way off topic, but that's what we do in these streams. Once I've GM'd for a bit, I may do, and I'm very comfortable with the system, and I'm very comfortable with how this works. I'll do an actual edited video of my thoughts, the strengths and weaknesses of using Tabletop Simulator with my experience, and hopefully that'll help people out. One last thing, Shaq. Could I strap an AT-AT leg onto a B-Wing bomber and hit people with a leg? No, not a chance. Not without killing yourself. I mean, you could do the roll, but you would fail it. That would be such a hard roll. Just be a gray Jedi and you'll be fine. Then the challenge would be staying balanced in the middle, because it's kind of like a hard flip. A gray would be a lower Jedi in the morality system, I would say. And the GM could come up with some special rules. If that was your character's goal, was to not really go for the light or the dark side, but to understand both, there could be some really fun home-brewed mechanics there on what it means to be a gray Jedi and the temptation of one or the other. I think that's actually a really cool idea. I don't know what it would be or how it would work. I'd have to give that some more thought. That would be something fun to explore, not only as a player exploring their character's story, but as a GM trying to boil down what does it mean to be a gray Jedi, or just a Force user that doesn't sway one way or the other. And yes, you could totally play in the clone era for those asking. There's no reason not to. The rules are straightforward. It's just a different setting. Different stories can be told. But yeah. Empire versus Rebels. All right, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. If you've never seen this channel before, my name's CaptainShack. I do a lot of sci-fi gaming modding stuff on the channel, with a good amount of Star Wars-y stuff, because I love Star Wars. I love this universe. And thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Later, everybody. Oh, we're streaming tomorrow, by the way. Same deal as always. Stellaris tomorrow, Saturday. Sunday's going to be Space Engineers with Tex. So, later, everybody.